28-year-old Edgar Welch was arrested in Washington Sunday afternoon outside Comet Ping Pong. Court documents say Welch read online that the Comet restaurant was harboring child sex slaves and he was armed to help rescue them. He surrendered peacefully when he found no evidence that underage children were being harbored in the restaurant.
7 years ago, CBS News reported on the so-called Pizzagate shooting in Washington. Now, the fact-free and implausibly zany conspiracy theory is resurfacing online again. Late last year, a website known for spreading misinformation posted false claims that the FBI had confirmed Pizzagate was real. With the 2024 elections less than a year away, a recent survey found 53% of Americans say they see false or misleading information online every day. Let's bring in Lisa Fazio, an associate professor of psychology at Vanderbilt University. She studies how people learn new information, both true and false. Thank you so much for being with us. What is the psychological attractiveness to conspiracy theories and information that seems to many people easily disprovable? What's happening in the brain?
Yeah, so these conspiracy theories are really appealing to people because they help them make sense of the world. In general, the modern world is confusing. There's a lot going on. We have a bunch of different threats. People might be experiencing job loss. They might be worried about a lack of status. And conspiracy theories allow us to live in a different world where that's not the case. They give us clear, simple answers. Why is there a problem in the US? It's because we have these elites who are doing child sex trafficking. If we shut that down, the world will get better. And so these narratives tend to be really appealing to people because they provide simple answers for what's wrong and how they can fix it.
And Professor, is there a distinction or a useful distinction between, let's say, truly crazy ideas like Pizzagate, widely debunked delusions like the stolen election, or something that is just kind of misinformation about a policy matter or something? I mean, does it matter the different kind of gradations of untruth?
Yeah, so something like Pizzagate, people are rarely going to believe it wholeheartedly from the get-go. It's something that you've got to kind of ease into, that you've got to accept a few premises firsthand before you get to the full-blown thing. Other types of misinformation are much simpler to believe. Sometimes we just don't have the knowledge to know that it's wrong. So if someone who you think is an expert tells you something, you're going to believe it, because what else do you have to go on? And one thing I think is useful is to think about what's the likelihood of harm. So flat earthers, it's a false belief. It's something that we might want to correct, but at the end of the day, it's not actively harming others to have a false belief that the earth is flat.
And once a person...
Unlike Pizzagate, where coming in with a gun is very clearly harming others.
Once a person's exposed to wrong information, how much harder is it psychologically to unwind that, to change their mind?
It is. It's difficult. It's way easier if we just don't expose people to false information in the first place. But we do know that people can revise their beliefs, and we can kind of slowly convince them that what they originally thought was correct was wrong. But it's never as easy as just preventing that exposure in the first place.
And is that because they have an emotional connection to the information, not just... I mean, that it sinks into their sense of identity? And if that's the case, what's the best way to replace misinformation that might be in a dangerous context, whether it's harm or the vote? What's the best way to unwind those beliefs?
Yeah, so we find that it's useful to talk about kind of what's wrong with the false information, why someone might be trying to spread that false information and trying to manipulate people, and then emphasizing what we know to be the correct information and making that correct information easy to understand, kind of as simple as possible, can be really helpful. But the more ingrained a false belief is, the closer it's tied to your identity, all of that's going to make it much more difficult to correct.
And finally, social media algorithms can put users in an echo chamber. In fact, they're designed to put users in an echo chamber by appealing to their brains. What is that doing to the way our brains work and not just in social media, but then when we take it back out into the world, the way our brains process information now in this age of social media.
One thing we know is that social media algorithms tend to prioritize engagement and they prioritize attention. And so that means that things that get people really riled up, that really appeal to their emotions, are the things that are going to go viral. They're the things that are going to get spread to lots and lots of people. And so that's really problematic in that emotional things are not necessarily the things that we really want to be spreading for accuracy and trust in democracy and other values we might hold. In fact, when you get super emotional information, that's a sign a lot of time that you're dealing with misinformation or something that's exaggerated or false.
That's right. If it sparks a strong emotion, check it out. Professor Elisa Fazio from Vanderbilt University.
That's the time to pause.
Thank you so much for being with us.